Hello everyone and welcome to my show. I am Aunty Dough, and I'm here to help home bakers with their baking problems. I'm here to answer the questions that are most important to bakers. While there is plenty of information on the internet these days, sometimes all that research can take you nowhere. So be sure to comment and send in your questions so we can answer them on the show. Today we will be going over the basics of dough. From ingredients to flour quality to mixing and more, there are a lot of things to keep in mind when preparing your dough. The most important thing, you ask? Flour, of course. Did you know that the first flour was created in 6000 BC by crushing grains between two stones? That's crazy, I know. Well, needless to say, things have changed quite a bit since then. Nowadays, there is a huge variety of flours on the market, but generally speaking, they can be divided into two types: grain-based versus grain-free, also known as gluten-free. Grain-based flours like wheat, rye, or spelt are more commonly used. However, as more and more people become passionate about gluten-free, bakers like you are experimenting with rice, coconut, and almond flour, among many others. Now, if we take a step back and look at wheat flour and why it's so popular, we'll find that it has to do with its protein. The gluten protein in wheat flour is what provides elasticity and resiliency, making it great for cookies, cakes, and bread. If you find that your baked goods aren't coming out the way you'd hoped, you need to first take a long, hard look at your flour and its gluten or protein content. Depending on the kind of bread you are making, you'll need different protein content. For example, hearth bread works best with 14% or higher. Sandwich bread can range from 11 to 15%. Pizza can work with anything from 9.5% to 12.5%, and then anything lower than 9.5% works well for pies, cookies, and cakes. The next most important ingredient in your dough is water. Of course, not all water is created equally. There is hard and soft water, and these types can range drastically in their amounts of calcium, magnesium, and sodium. Surprise, the concentration of these minerals can also affect your baked goods. You should know that hard water has a high mineral content, which adds strength and speeds up fermentation in dough. Whereas soft water has a lower mineral content, decreasing dough strength and fermentation speed. So why is water so important? Well, when it is added to dry ingredients, the water molecules hydrate the gluten proteins, and these form the gluten strands. Once you start mixing and the dough comes together, it becomes homogenized and properly developed. The wrong type of water will leave the dough feeling tight, lead to little pan flow, and can leave white edges at the bottom of your bread. Although too much water will slow down this process, increase mixing time, and make your dough too sticky and hard to work with. Water is important in creating a good gluten network. Not to mention, it can be used to control the temperature of your dough or batter. Still, water doesn't do all the work. It works together with tiny organisms known as yeast. You may not see it in your bread, but without yeast and the gas it produces to raise dough, bread just wouldn't be the same. Though yeast also serves other functions in dough, like adding a nice aroma and maturing the dough. Did you ever notice that after 2 to 4 hours of fermentation, the dough feels drier and fuller? This is due to the enzymes in yeast, which produce the acids that work on the polymeric nature of dough. It's important to know that when yeast is in a warm enough and moist enough environment, it will get right to work. Bakers should aim for 9 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius when yeast is most active. Then, yeast reduces its activity to around 105 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius and is killed at 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius. Yeast is actually very resilient. Even in a refrigerator, it will keep fermenting, but at a slower rate. So it's not surprising that dough that has been left to ferment overnight in the fridge gets such a rich and aromatic flavor. In fact, it continues to ferment until under 41 degrees Fahrenheit or 5 degrees Celsius, and then completely dormant below 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. Okay, bakers. Now that you know the basics of flour, water, and yeast, watch out for my next video as I show you how to get to a fully developed dough. I hope you found this information helpful. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell below. If you have a question for Aunty Dough, leave it for me down in the comments. Also, feel free to download my free PDF via the link below.